President Xi Jinping repeated that there are no winners, not in a Cold War, not in commercial war. He said it during the annual meeting of the Economic Cooperation Forum, Asia-Pacific. During his speech that he called taking advantage of opportunities of our time to pursue jointly the prosperity of Asia-Pacific. Another actor of the world geopolitic, completely different in thought and actions, as we know, the United States, continues opposing. So this time the summit did not close with the traditional communication of the leaders because there is no point of encounter. Russia also pronounced it, made its voice, and the negotiation is a possible minimum to negotiate in all surroundings. What does this disagreement show? In this, what importance does this forum have that concentrates almost half of the world trade and has a dynamic flow of Asia-Pacific trade? The U.S. interests also have to do with the Southern Sea of China and Taiwan. APEC summit without an agreement. This is our critical move today. Among the topics discussed in this annual meeting of leaders was digital economy, regional economy, free trade area around the Asia-Pacific area, micro, small, and middle companies, services, innovation, technology, food safety, among others. President Donald Trump did not attend, but his Vice President Mike Pence attended. Chinese President Xi Jinping did attend and had meetings with other important members. No spokesman concealed the points of disagreement that we all know. Let's listen to three of the main actors. Tariffs, protectionism, commercial trade, and sanctions are the words. Resort to old practices like protectionism and unilateralism will not resolve problems. On the contrary, they can only add uncertainty to the global economy. Only opening and cooperation can provide more opportunities and give more spaces for development. This is a historic proven fact. Whoever chooses to close their door will remain isolated and lose its direction. We have taken decisive measures to address our commercial imbalance with China. We have applied tariffs of $250 billion to Chinese products, and we can duplicate that number. But we expect better things. The United States will not change its position until China changes. We are looking at growing protectionism in some states that is developed based on certain decisions that could lead to commercial wars. Economic decisions have become a political pressure tool that could have serious consequences. Let's see general data about foundation and goals of this tri-continent summit that was born to discuss economic topics. The Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum was founded on November 7th of 1989 in Singapore, made up of 21 economies that together make up a market of around 2.85 million consumers. It represents 59% of the global GDP, 40% of the population of the planet, and 47% of international trade, as well as 62.23 million square kilometers. 2 are in Asia, 3 in America, and 1 in Oceania. This one took place in Papua New Guinea with the attendance of 15
Rusia, Singapur, Tailandia, Taipei
and the
y
countries that
Vietnam,
are on
además del
screen,
país anfitrión.
besides the host
Figuran entre
country.
los objetivos
Among
estratégicos del
the
bloque
strategic
multinacional
goals of
inversiones
APEC are
enfocadas en la
free
máxima
trade
reducción
and
del mercado,
investment,
disminución de los costes de
lowering
transacciones
business
empresariales
transaction
promedios,
costs, strengthening
intensificación de las
dependent
relaciones
technical
técnicas y
and economic
económicas
relations
sobre las capacidades
above
institucionales de los
institutional
sectores público y
capacities of
privado.
public and
La
private
próxima sede
sectors.
será
The
Chile
next seat
y
will
este
be
foro se
Chile,
hará bajo el
and this
lema
forum would
Conectando Personas,
the slogan will
Construyendo
be
Futuro.
Connecting People, Building the Future.
Bueno, vamos a sumar
We're going
lo que refiere o lo que publicó
see what was
recientemente la
published
agencia de
recently
noticias
by
Xinhua en español.
Xinhua
El titular dice
in
así:
Spanish.
Xi pide cooperación de
She
más alto
asked
nivel
for
en
the
Asia
highest
Pacífico
cooperation in
ante
Asia Pacific
encrucijada
in
histórica.
this
Destaca
meeting.
palabras del discurso pronunciado por Xi en
The
esta
important
reunión
words
central de
pronounced by
líderes
Xi
que
in
se
this
dio
summit of
en
leaders
la
that
cumbre
took place
APEC. Hemos llegado a
of
una
APEC,
encrucijada
we
histórica
have
donde
reached
debemos
a
apreciar
historic
con agudeza la
point where
tendencia
we
que
must
sigue nuestro
appreciate
mundo
the
y
trends of
tomar
our
el pulso
world
a la economía
and take the
mundial. De
pulse
esta
to
forma
world
seremos capaces de
economy.
responder a la
Only
llamada de
then will
nuestro
we be able
tiempo
to
para
respond to
trazar
the
el
call
rumbo
of
de
our
forma
times to
apropiada.
trace the
Debemos
route
construir una economía
adequately.
abierta en Asia
We must
Pacífico,
build an open
defender
economy
con
in
firmeza
Asia
el sistema de
Pacific and
comercio
defend
multilateral
the
basado en las
multilateral
normas
trade
y
system
decir no
based
al
on rules
proteccionismo.
and say no to
La Organización Mundial del
protectionism.
Comercio seguía diciendo Xi está abriendo una
WTO
nueva ronda de
continues said
reformas.
that she is
Esas
opening a
reformas
new round of
deberían
reforms that
diseñarse para
should be
defender los
designed
valores
to
esenciales y
defend the
principios básicos
essential
del sistema de
values and
comercio
basic principles
multilateral.
of the multilateral trade system.
Y ahora nos vamos a la
And
vanguardia de
now we
España.
go to
China
La
califica
Vanguardia,
de
Spain.
éxito el
Chile
foro APEC, pese a la
called
falta de
successful
consenso.
the
La
APEC
batalla
for
por la influencia en el
in spite of the
Pacífico
lack
y las
of agreement,
desavenencias entre Estados Unidos y
in
China
spite
en
of the
materia
disagreements
comercial
between
estuvieron detrás de la
United
ruptura
States
del
and
consenso
China
del
in
foro
commercial
APEC.
matters,
Vicepresidente de
the Vice
Estados Unidos
President of
Mike
the United
Pence
States,
aseguró que
Mike
la
Pence,
iniciativa
assured
china
that the
de la nueva
Chinese
ruta de la
initiative
seda
of the new
que
Silk
busca
Route
expandir
that
la
seeks to
cooperación con naciones
expand
en
the
desarrollo a través
cooperation
de la
with
inversión en
developing
infraestructura y
nations
créditos
through
blandos, dice este portal,
soft
es
credits
un plan de
is
opaca diplomacia
a
de chequera,
dark
entre comillas, porque así lo
diplomacy
dijo Pence,
checkbook
y llamaba
plan,
acto
as
seguido a no
Pence
caer
said,
en esa tentación.
and he
En
called the
conferencia de
nations
prensa,
not
el
to fall
portavoz
in this
de Relaciones
temptation.
Exteriores de China, Jen Shuang, respondía: hay países que deberían
The Chinese
abstenerse de
official
usar
said that some
pretextos
countries
para
should
promover el
refrain from
proteccionismo,
using
minar
pretexts
los intereses
to
de otros
promote
países o imponer su
protectionism,
voluntad.
mine
Las
other
prácticas de
countries
acoso
or impose
político
its
y
will.
económico se
The
han
economic and
encontrado con la
political
oposición de la mayoría de los
imposition
países
has
miembros
found
del
the
foro APEC. Así
opposition of
decía o
most of the
pronunciaba
members
Jen
of
Shuang.
APEC Forum.
Bueno, y aquí tenemos nuestra recomendación. La
Our
encontramos en el
recommendation
Centro
today
Estratégico
is on the Latin
Geopolítica
American
CELAC. Es un análisis de Ava Gómez Daza,
strategic sector
investigadora,
of APEC written by
postdoctora
Ava
del
Gomez
CONICET
Daza,
en el
researcher
Instituto de Estudios de América
in
Latina y el
the
Caribe de la Universidad de Buenos Aires,
University of
doctora en
Buenos
Ciencia Política por la
Aires,
Universidad de Salamanca.
doctor in political
Tiene
science by the
además
University of
maestría
Salamanca, and
en
has a
estudios
master's degree in Latin
latinoamericanos,
American
integrado en comunicación
students,
audiovisual y en
pre-graduate
sociología por
in
la misma Casa de
communication
Estudios. Es
degree.
investigadora de este centro. Y se llama el artículo
The
en
article
APEC
is
China
called
1, Estados Unidos 0.
In
Es un
APEC,
análisis
China
de la
1,
última
United States
edición, sin
0.
contar esta
It's
que
an
se dio en
analysis of the last
2018,
edition
pero tiene
without
perfecta validez
noting
o
the last one in
vigencia. En
2018,
definitiva,
but
el
it's
gigante
completely
asiático, dice la
valid.
autora, defiende una estrategia diametralmente opuesta a
Asia
la del
Pacific
gobierno
defends a strategy
estadounidense
completely
y se
opposite to
reorienta
that
o
of
se
the
orienta a la apuesta por una
United
colaboración
States.
económica
It
entre
bets
países de todo el
on
mundo, tal y
economic
como señala el
collaboration of
presidente Xi
all the
Jinping.
world, as
En la
President Xi
actualidad, el
Jinping
progreso
declared.
hacia
At
globalización económica está
present,
experimentando vientos en
progress
contra.
towards
Una de las razones
economic
es que no es lo
collaboration has
suficientemente
encountered
incluyente.
problems because
Debe
it's
haber
not
más esfuerzos para asegurar que
inclusive enough.
distintos
We must
países y
make
personas de
efforts to
diferentes
assure
ámbitos de la vida
that
puedan
peoples and
disfrutar
countries
los
of
beneficios
different
de desarrollo. Y vale
areas
preguntarse si
enjoy
eso
the
que resulta
development.
medular,
If
evidentemente,
this
para
is
los
the
pueblos,
center for the
es algo que se
peoples,
esté
it is
atendiendo
something that
en
we
estos
must
escenarios.
address in these scenarios.
Volvemos sobre un punto
We'll go
inicial.
back
Mucha inquietud
to our initial
despierta la
point.
falta o la ausencia de un documento
The
conclusivo,
lack of
porque
a
siempre se
conclusive
limita
document
a
is
a ese
something
texto
that
último como la hoja de ruta
concerns many
fundamental.
because it
Esta
always
vez
is
hubo
seen
cruce de
as
frases gruesas
a
en
basic
plena cumbre.
document.
Ya
There
teníamos
were,
ahí las
this
reseñas en los
time,
portales
there were
que han expresado
disagreements
otros integrantes como Canadá,
expressed by
Japón y el
other
país
members like
anfitrión,
Canada,
Papúa Nueva Guinea,
Japan,
por
and
ejemplo.
Papua
Karina
New
Cartagena nos
Guinea.
cuenta, nos relata desde la ciudad
Karina
de Nueva York. Hola, Karina.
Cartagena is contacting broadcasting us from New York City.
Saludos para ti y para toda la
Greetings
audiencia
for
de Telesur. Por
you
primera vez en
and
25 años de historia,
Telesur.
la
For the
cumbre del
first
Foro
time
de
in 25
Cooperación
years of
Económica
history,
Asia-Pacífico, APEC, por
APEC
sus siglas en inglés, ha concluido
has
sin
concluded
acuerdo para una
a
declaración
summit
final
without
conjunta.
agreement,
Los
without a
21
joint
líderes de
declaration. The
APEC
21
reunidos
leaders
en la
of
cumbre
APEC
anual
met
en
in the
Papúa
annual
Nueva
summit
Guinea
in
han
Papua New
alcanzado un
Guinea
acuerdo
have
excepto China.
reached an
El
agreement
primer
except China.
ministro de
The
Canadá,
First
Justin
Minister of
Trudeau,
Canada,
ha
Justin
confirmado
Trudeau,
que la
has
falta de
confirmed that the
acuerdo
lack of
en temas
agreement on
comerciales se interpuso
commercial
en el camino
topics
de una
was in
declaración
the way
final.
of a final
En esta cumbre ha
declaration.
quedado en
This
evidencia
summit
las
showed
divisiones
the
cada vez más marcadas
increasingly
entre las
growing
potencias
divisions
mundiales,
among world
Estados
powers,
Unidos
United
y China.
States and
Es
China.
importante
It's
mencionar
important
que
to say
el
that
presidente de la reunión, el
President
primer
of the
ministro
meeting,
de
First
Papúa
Minister
Nueva
of Papua
Guinea,
New Guinea,
Peter
Peter
ha
O'Neill,
señalado que
pointed
todo
out that
el mundo está
all the
preocupado
world
por las
is
tensiones entre
concerned
China
by the
y
tensions
Estados Unidos.
between China
En
and the United
tanto, el
States.
primer ministro de
Meanwhile, the
Japón
First
ha
Minister of
indicado
Japan
que
stated
las
that
restricciones comerciales
commercial
aplicadas
restrictions
como
applied
medidas de
as
represalia se están dando por todo
punishments
el mundo
are
y ha
around the
pedido
world,
que
and he
deben
asked
tomarse estas
that
medidas en
these
base a
measures
la
should be
normativa
taken
de
according to
la
the regulation
Organización Mundial
of
del
the
Comercio.
World Trade
Pese a la
Organization.
falta de un
In
comunicado
spite of the
conjunto, se
lack of a
conoce
joint
que las
communication or
negociaciones
declaration,
hacia
we
la
learned that
Asociación Económica
negotiations
Integral
to
Regional continúan
Integral
entre
Regional
16
Economic
naciones,
Association
incluida
continues
China,
between
mientras que la
16
Casa
nations,
Blanca
including
se ha
China, while the
comprometido
White
a
House
centrarse en
committed to
construir
focus
acuerdos
on
comerciales
building
bilaterales.
bilateral trade agreements.
Gracias, Karina. Bueno, nos
Thank you,
preguntamos
Karina.
qué tan
We
determinante
ask how
resulta que no haya
decisive
habido comunicado de
is
líderes
the
al
lack
principio.
of a
¿Acaso
declaration
solo
in the
en la
end?
disputa o en las tensiones
Is
comerciales
it
se
only
centran las
in
diferencias o
differences
las
are only
desavenencias
focused
entre
on
estos dos actores
commercial
peso pesados,
aspects?
por decirlo de alguna manera, en el tablero geopolítico mundial? ¿O hay otras
Or
cuestiones
are
que
there
también son
other
importantes, que son
matters that are
trascendentales y
also
que están siendo
transcended and
opacadas por
that are
esta
being
llamada guerra comercial?
shadowed
Esto
by
se lo
this
preguntaremos
commercial
a nuestros
war?
invitados
This
en el
is what we
próximo
will
segmento. Una
ask
pausa.
our
Usted no
guest
se vaya,
after this
sigue siendo
pause.
nuestro invitado en esta jugada crítica.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud, amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Foro de Cooperación Económica
Economic
Asia-Pacífico
Cooperation
ha
Forum
concluido
of
recientemente
APEC had just
sin
concluded
declaración
without
final.
a
Nos
final
preguntamos si esto
declaration.
plantea
We were
alguna
asking if
relevancia,
this
si
shows
marca una encrucijada
some
histórica
a
entre
historic
potencias mundiales,
problem
caso
between
China, caso
world
Estados
problems,
Unidos.
China
Quiero
and
sumar
United States.
esto que refiere
I would
Sputnik,
like
porque al
to
comienzo,
add
cuando narrábamos nuestra primera
Sputnik's
jugada,
opinion
decíamos, el presidente
because
Xi
we were
Jinping
saying that
sí asistió
Chinese
a la
President Xi
conferencia de
Jinping
su homólogo
did
estadounidense
attend,
Donald
unlike
Trump,
his
y además
U.S.
lució
peer
como
Donald
uno
Trump.
de los
And additionally,
protagonistas o
he
actores
seemed one of
principales
the protagonists or main actors with his speech, but also took advantage to visit other countries with whom he has important bilateral relations. And Sputnik talks about the Philippines falls in the arms of China. This is the title of this news. A few days after the summit of APEC in Papua New Guinea, President Xi Jinping will visit Philippines, one of the countries with the main strategic importance in the region. In this first visit of the Chinese president, the topics are the joint use of Southern Sea of China and infrastructure projects on Philippine territory. According to experts, the visit could mark the beginning of a new golden era between both countries. This is what the analyst Elena Fomiceo says, interviewed by Sputnik, who said that China is winning more points in the Southern Pacific because it has specific proposals for developing the region. One of them is the Silk Route, both land and sea, while the United States is only issuing conditions that are for their interests. The commercial war scenario that the United States opened some months ago by imposing tariffs and threatening once and again definitely changed the spectrum, and we want to talk about what happened. The programmatic ideological systems and ways of conceiving problems between China and the United States that are strongly disputed to be number one economies of the world was the note in this new forum. For the first time since 1999, the annual summit of the forum concluded without a statement. Some countries assured that under no circumstance the fact of closing without a conclusive document damages the bloc. But they did acknowledge that differences are unconcealable and that agreements are usually adopted unanimously, even if they are not binding. The U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, the spokesman of APEC this year, called not to be subdued by the Chinese checkbook. And he said that the United States does not indebt their countries or commit the independence of others. Regarding tariffs, he said he will not step back until China changes conduct. These phrases were inadmissible and a clear provocation for China. He also said that WTO has reformed. Last Friday, President Donald Trump acknowledged that China sent a long list of more than 140 elements to resolve bilateral commercial tensions, and that he stopped imposing new tariffs. Even if it was not acceptable for him, China is the main holder of U.S. debt, will continue operating with open doors, without isolation, and a new battle is coming in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Next week, both presidents will meet in the G20 summit with expectation by the APEC concluding without a final text. We are now linking with our analysts. From Bogotá, we have Enrique Daza, International Economic Analyst, and from Buenos Aires, Argentina, Hernan Lete, Director of the Economic Center of Political Economy, Argentina. I want to start with Enrique from Bogotá. Upon the information that we have listened, what conclusions do you make after the summit of the meeting of one of the most important trade area in the world? Having closed without a final declaration has any relevance? Yes, it is important, and this shows that the relations between China and the United States could affect all international relations and has a global scope. It shows that China is in a better position than the United States in this region of the Pacific. United States is working without much initiatives, and China undisputably came to the space with proposals and with the idea that is broadly accepted by the participating countries that it condemns U.S. unilateralism. China is in a better position than the United States. It is relevant as it's an important news that not concluding with a declaration. Now, I want to connect with Hernan from Buenos Aires. What are your conclusions? Well, I share that it is relevant because what happened is that this confrontation between Washington and China regarding the current international trade was exposed and was the central core of the summit. It is true also that China was more playing as a local because of the member countries or attending countries in this forum. If you deepen a little, the truth is that these proposals, both the United States and China, countries, developing countries like ours, for example, I would say are out of that relation because there is no attractive proposal. We could tend more to the Chinese proposal because of what you mentioned, but because of the arrogance that the United States usually has in international trade. But it's not less true that there is not a sound proposal for the development of countries like Argentina in that context. No attractive proposal for the development of a region, of our region. I would like you to tell us what contributions has this forum made, because it gathers an important percentage of the global GDP, almost 60%. Well, for the member countries, I think that this is transcended. Argentina is not member of this forum, so for our country, it has almost no affectation. In relation to the forum, I think that all the areas that facilitate regional trade favor, in this case, especially to China, but probably to several countries. You were mentioning the meeting of China and Philippines, and I think it's attractive at the regional basis. Here in Argentina, we are living on a reverse project. What Mercosur has a strong step back. You can compare Mercosur with some regional markets of China and nearby countries. But in Argentina, the regional countries, so we have the reverse process. And I would say that all this is attractive. You were mentioning Philippines, Vietnam, and some countries that are participating in this forum. That United States is remote in regional terms, and perhaps what they want is that stop the Chinese proposal, the Silk Route, and any market that allows the placing Chinese products in regional markets and even development of these countries. That I not only discard, but I think that the Chinese proposal is good for development. I was asking this because of the contributions between member countries that are part of the tricontinental bloc, considering the asymmetries between them. I would like to go back to Enrique. We have learned that always that the United States is marking the disagreement with protectionism. Is it true that the U.S. trade policy is changing, or are there just tactical speech changes in these international meetings, but in essence everything is the same and everything is aimed to the same, preserve U.S. hegemony? Well, United States has always tried to preserve its hegemony. The problem is it has a consecutive series of rocks. For example, the failure of PPP in the United States leaves a space for China. In fact, PPP was initially considered a treaty that sought to isolate China, and it not only didn't meet this goal, but China is now the center of and the main partner of a huge majority of countries that are negotiating in APEC, and in Australia that acts as representative of the United States. China acts as the country with the highest investments and the main commercial partner of those countries. So even if the United States attempts to keep its hegemony, it is very difficult to do it in that region, and I think that the meeting is a defeat of U.S. policy. The idea of Vice President Pence is that of sending United States first is very difficult to defend in a forum like this, where it seems some kind of offense to these countries. There was a direct attack to the Silk Route. We had it in our news. Vice President Mike Pence said that we call from the United States to other countries not to fall in the temptation of that checkbook commercial policy. And the Foreign Affairs representative said immediately that any excuse is good at the time of undermining the independence, sovereignty, and economy of other sovereign states.
También está de manera expresa, directa, en la mira de Estados Unidos esta
it is also such ambitious Chinese initiative is in the target of the United States. Yes, and the United States is in disadvantage because China is placing investments, loans, investments, and the United States has nothing to offer. So a simple opposition to a macro project like this can have no support of the country from the countries involved. Well, pedagogy is always good, and this is why I linked with Erlang to show us how free trade is performed. Well, a contribution regarding the last question you just made. It is ironic that the United States questioned the checkbook policy of China. It's ironic considering the behavior the United States has had once again with world trade, because there's a great contradiction. In principle, the United States proposes protectionism or something like that, but this protectionism only benefits the United States. He questions the policy of China that for the countries that attend the fora is much more attractive. Evidently, and this questioning is ironic, and I share that the idea that the U.S. policy in this forum has been defeated. I don't know if it's a significant defeat, but it is a defeat because of the Chinese position regarding the rest of the countries, and countries that pretend to take the path of industrial economic growth. I think that between China and the United States there are not many doubts, and this is what they didn't sign it, but in some way the non-signature of a final agreement, China is better positioned than the United States with his contradictory protectionism.
Mantengo la pregunta que planteaba al comienzo. ¿Están
Hernán,
las potencias mundiales en una encrucijada histórica?
Are the world powers
Sí,
in
yo
a
creo que
historic
sí. Creo que el foro ha sido una
time?
expresión
Yes,
más
I think that
de
the
esa
forum has been
disputa
one more
que no
expression of
sabemos
this
cómo
dispute
termina,
that we don't
que
know how it
evidentemente
will end.
el foro también lo
Of course, the
expresó.
forum also
En principio,
expressed
ninguna de
it.
las dos
In
potencias, ni
principle,
Estados Unidos ni China,
neither
tienen
power,
demasiadas
China or the United
intenciones
States,
de
have
revisar su
intentions of
posicionamiento,
revising
y que la
their
verdad,
positions.
cuando da la
And the
impresión que hay
truth
algún
is, I have the
acercamiento,
impression
este
that
tipo de
when there
encuentros
is
lo da
some
por
kind of
tierra, con lo
approach,
cual,
this kind of
bueno,
meeting
estaremos
ends
expectantes de
it.
lo que
So
sucede
we
en los
will
próximos días, en los
see what
próximos meses
happens in the next
respecto de
days or
esta cuestión
months
que
regarding this
naturalmente, habida cuenta de que son los
aspect
las
that
dos potencias
since
económicas más,
these are
más
the most
significativas del mundo,
important
nos
powers of
afectan
the
de una
world
manera u
affect
otra a
us
cada uno de nuestros países.
somehow, each of our
Agradezco a Hernán y
countries.
Enrique por
I
habernos
thank
atendido
Hernán
y
Enrique
por
for
haber
having
reflexionado
us
junto a
and
nosotros en
reflecting
esta jugada
together
crítica. Hasta
in
pronto.
critical
Y
mood.
bueno, preciso mantener el interrogante
And
si
we
están las
must
potencias
keep
mundiales en una
the
encrucijada
question
histórica
if the world
para conocer
powers
la opinión
are
de
in a
nuestra
given
próxima invitada.
time
Si
to
este
learn
caso,
the
este
opinion
último
of our
foro de la
next
APEC
guest.
ha demostrado, ha
If
sido
this
una
last
manifestación
forum of
expresa
APEC has
de esa
been
disputa
an
o de
express
esas tensiones
manifestation of
históricas que
these
hay entre China
historic
y Estados
tensions
Unidos. Ya
between
venimos, una
China and
pausa
the
en
United
Jugada Crítica y
States.
volvemos.
We'll be back after the pause.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
As in other areas, U.S. President Donald Trump has kept a changing relation with the transatlantic. While the countries of the region chose to meet in the summits of Southeastern Association as APEC, President Trump decided not to attend and send his Vice President Mike Pence, contrary to Xi Jinping, Putin, Japanese, Indian, and South Korean. This absence was due to coincident events, or is it a message to this area? It is vital for the primacy of its rival. The truth is that the Trans-Pacific Agreement and the Regional Association, when there were a few meters of materialism, received a kick by Trump. In the case of RCEP, it sought to open Asian economies and increase trade, but after 24 rounds of negotiations, the negotiations slowed down and even stagnated. Transatlantic relations is the most important example of this. Angela Merkel talked about the threat of abandoning NATO, the enthusiasm for breakfast, the declaration that Europeans are enemies, and a long list of contradictions and showed changes in some rules of the game internationally. In this segment for analysis, we have Rosalba Luentico, international journalist, specialist in Eurasia, Director General of Russian Institute, Alexander Pushkin. Thank you for your invitation. Let's see how we can analyze this case. Well, the first thing is, what is your conclusion after the information we've received from the summit. It's important to consider that not having reached a final document calls the attention of the world. It is the first time after so many years of the life of this organization. It is evident that Donald Trump's policy is promoting a struggle for not losing hegemony on international trade versus this great proposal in advance of China, the construction of a new development hall, the 21st century development hall, promoted through the Silk Route as a mechanism of supranational transcontinental integration. So in a certain way, the U.S. opposition is related to this Chinese initiative that is becoming stronger. Yes, because the member countries that progressively have incorporated this great project promoted by China gives place to what Mao Zedong talked about in 1974, leave the third world. And in this step, multipolarity and pluripolarity is born, and this is what China is promoting. We're talking about one of the great emerging powers like China, Asia, Eurasia, with Russia at the head, Africa, and of course Latin America and Caribbean. I was asking our former guest, or both, what contribution does this APEC forum does that concentrate 60% of the global GDP, half of the international trade, a market of more than 2.8 million consumers, considering they have such different asymmetric economies? Well, we start evaluating what these new development routes, both sea and land routes, represent and are included in this huge world power. The incorporation of Latin America and the Caribbean as great suppliers, not only of raw material, but also finished products, science, and technology to all member countries. It is very important to talk about the Pacific Ocean because the Transocean Maritime route, Beijing, Peru, will connect the new railroad project that is being promoted by President President Maduro, Peru, Bolivia, and Brazil. And then it is connected by the sea running through our coasts, and it would be the transatlantic port of Nicaragua would be essential. Russia, in its space of cooperation, is promoting, together with China, a new port, as in Vladivostok. We continue promoting the railroad that connects all these continents. The member countries that attended this forum are assessing what could happen around this growing conflict between China and the United States, which obeys to economic interests. So everything depends on the result between these heavyweights. Yes, because the United States, with its vision of Doctrine Monroe, America for the Americans, but also its vision of emerging ALCA as a free trade market. It is attempting and is attacking us as a country. Venezuela tries to dismantle these integration projects or supranational projects like ALBA, CELAC, Metrocaribe, Mercosur, because together with a relation with China, well, we talk about Chinese pragmatism. Beyond political, religious ideology, it allows respect to the self-determination of the peoples, and it observes that each country can develop economically. So we link through an economic commercial relation beyond political ideologies and factors that are distractors. Is this does this kind of showbiz policy of Donald Trump giving any result of sending a representative always with these threats and strong accusations? Does he have any kind of political earning of kicking all agreements and the possibilities of signing final declarations?
Especialmente hay que considerar que cuando nos presentamos ante un espacio
we must consider that when we are in an international space, the attendance or not of a president determines the position of a country. So there we see no dialogue, or they want to transmit a serious confrontation, economic commercial confrontation. Two models are being confronted, and the proposal of imperialist United States in opposition to this proposal of integration of China with the Silk Route. We can see increasingly how China establishes much more harmonious economic relations with the countries of the world. Nevertheless, we are in a transition phase that Mao Zedong was talked about. United States has products, goods, products, and services has been placed around the countries of the world, and now we will see a step back where the countries, respecting the self-determination of their peoples and governments, there is no interest. So there will be a substitution of technology, of products that China promotes with products that until now, the last 100 years, have been a king in the United States, and the United States is feeling threatened of losing market. This is a world threat of a commercial economic war. It's another important actor, and the spokesman has said in that meeting
de los países que hacen parte de este bloque tricontinental, como decíamos, Oceanía, Asia y América, expresaban que no tienen
they said that Russia has no
que no tiene ninguna traba en incluso intermediar entre las dos potencias, China y Estados
problem
Unidos,
in seeking for a consensus, because a commercial war would have no winner. But this was said by Dmitry Medvedev. Medvedev is promoting this vision of the new foreign policy promoted by President Putin as of his re-election this year, where the Russian vision has always been in the different scenarios of conflict to mediate or try to guarantee the balance in world peace, to respect sovereignty and self-determination of the peoples. Of course, Russia is also developing economic, commercial alliances and we go back to the starting point. I respect your ideological, political position, religious position, but in the economic commercial field we can be strategic partners in many aspects, but also competitors. So Russia is also promoting a railroad that connects New York to London. And in this process of harmonizing relations, all these development halls, railroads, sea, and the new future air routes will make international trade more dynamic around the world. So, of course, Russia's position as offering as a mediator is the possibility of synergy and complementarity, and a road to what Hugo Chavez said in 2012, the transition from the multi-nuclear world to the multipolar world. And we are at this point where all nations do not want to remain aside because it's a new globalization phase, much more advanced and with much more integration, where it was not going to be only one actor, one imperialist view, as well as the European Union that is also in permanent discussions with the United States, because the accompaniment of this U.S. policy of sanctions, especially against Russia in 2014, has deepened a crisis in the European Union. The economic commercial crisis in this new phase, it could also represent a rebirth for the European Union with these emerging markets. So it's important to consider that the goal that the non-signature is related to that, to go to a negotiation round to lower tensions. A final rupture in APEC could create a domino effect in other spaces of multinational consultation. In a hypothetical case, a final rupture in this forum could be a reaccommodation of an economic commercial relation international. Nevertheless, together with Forum, we saw the Shanghai Expo, the Economic Forum Vladivostok, and St. Petersburg, and the different spaces where other strategic alliances are being proposed. So evidently, United States must, if we're still talking in hypothesis, continue promoting the Monroe Doctrine and keeping as a hegemonic empire. Well, he will not allow other countries to emerge. It is control of the market, and he has done this very well, punish, declare wars because they are in default and they need to increase their GDP, and they've done it through wars. Thank you very much for these reflections. We now go to our final ideas and conclusions. APEC Forum this time concluded without the final declaration, and this is one more expression of a decisive historic dispute. None of two powers, China and the United States, has intentions of changing their positions, and when there has been an approach, these encounters leave those intentions null. hegemony with the United States with its politics of protectionism, and China has shown once again that a commercial diplomacy leaves aside the attempts of United States of political subordination and destroying sovereignty of the rest of the countries. United States shows it fears the possibility of a new political geoeconomical order that is being promoted by China as a power versus an integration model so ambitious as the new Silk Route. This dispute appears as part of the agenda. This is why the media only call them commercial war. We end Critical Move. Thank you very much for being with us.